What's going on, guys? Albie with Albie Fitness Gaming, and you seen the title of the video, you know why you're here, brother. Green, white, death and taxes, and today we're playing against Hammer Time, one of the up-and-coming decks here in Modern. So today we're going to be going over the deck that I've been working on, which we don't play any vials, nor do we play collected companies. We don't play any gimmicks, just straight up hate. Just straight up taxing our opponent and just winning games. So let's go ahead and get into the game here. So we have a pretty good hand here. Any hand with a Thalia in it and a threat like a questing beast or a Knighted Reliquary is a decent hand, especially when you have utility lands like Horizon Canopy and Ghost Quarter, because those are good lands against certain decks. Thalia is one of those cards that she's really good when you draw her early on against certain decks. Against other decks, she's whatever, but that's why we have a sideboard. Anyway, so Hammer Time. As soon as I see this little setup here, I'm like, all right, we're playing against Hammer Time. So Thalia is going to be good in this matchup, or at least good enough. She's not going to be able to win us the game by herself, but she can definitely slow down the opponent enough for us to get in some beats. We drew into a Path to Exile. That's always good. With Thalia on board, it's probably going to limit our opponent from playing possibly only one spell per turn, so it's going to be easy for us to be able to control the board state. They play a Nexus here. We have a Ghost Quarter for that. So right now, things are looking good. Things are looking good. So there it is, Sigarda's Aid. You already know where this is headed to. Hammer Time, probably in the hand. 3 cards to deal with. So at this play here, I think the opponent should have just taken the 2. We're going to attack with the Thalia in hopes that they go to block with the Ornithopter and give it protection with the Giver, and then we're going to path the Ornithopter because we want to get rid of their threats. If their threats are not on the board, their equipments don't mean anything. So we do that. I'm thinking, maybe they do that. But they probably should just take the 2, right? There's no rush. Nope. But the opponent goes to protect, to block. I don't play Hammer Time, and I don't know what they have in their hand, but I would have just taken the 2 and just equipped it to the Ornithopter and then keep the Giver to protect the Ornithopter and just ride that to victory. But that's me. You guys let me know in the comment box, anybody who plays Hammer Time, let me know if that's what you would have done, if that was a misplay or is that not a misplay. I don't know. I just know how to play green-white. That's what I do, baby. That's what I do, baby! Alright, so opponent has all the Horizon lands here, so they're going to be able to draw into some cards here, but luckily we have Thalia, so every time they draw a card, it is going to slow them down. So they're going to go searching here for an equipment. We're going to have to assume that it's going to be Hammer Time, baby. So now that we know it's Hammer Time, we need, either a Pass or a Skyclave or a Pride Mage. So we definitely have some answers here. Luckily for us, the hammer does not give trample, but they do have, I forgot the name of the equipment, but the one that gives them lifelink and trample, so we have to be aware of that. Also, the opponent can draw another Giver of Ruins and protect this Giver of Ruins and get in. So, we're definitely on back footing right now, but we're not in a losing position at all. So here, of course, we're going to go in with the beats, the Questing Beast. Another thing, you guys probably noticed when I play this Death and Taxes, I like to take damage. I use my life total as a resource. I don't block prematurely. I'll take as much as I can. I'll go down to 1. I don't care. Because keeping your creatures on board is that important. Opponent here really thinking about what they want to do. So right now, our draw has to be a Skyclave, a Path, or a Pride Mage if we want to have a shot. We have to draw that probably in the next 1 or 2 turns. I mean, we have some blockers here, but we don't want to be turning our wheels just blocking, right? Like, we need to close out the game. We do have the Questing Beast that has Death Touch, so that should keep them from attacking us. But who knows? Maybe they will attack us and we'll be forced to maybe trade here. I do think the Thalia is better in this board state than the Questing Beast. So I should have probably attacked last turn with Thalia. No, actually, no. I shouldn't have, I don't think. No, you don't attack, because they can activate the Blink Moth and do some shenanigans. Alright. So they got the second giver. Now we're getting squeezed, because now they're running into that play that I spoke about earlier, where they can start protecting their giver and get in for some damage and end the game. And boom! The greatest card printed for this deck in a long, long time. The reason, other than Voice of Resurgence, of course, but the reason why these decks are actually playable now. I mean, they were always playable, but they're actually tier now. I mean, you guys have been watching my games. Skyclave has been an all-star. I mean, this card does it all. It does everything you need it to do for these decks. And boom! Just like that, now our opponent is on the back foot. So they can't even block our Questing Beast now. And we do have a Batterskull here that can come down and really close out the game, right? And we have enough mana that eventually we can equip it if the game even gets that far. So at this point, even if they play another hammer, we're comfortable obviously with trading our Questing Beast for their guy, for their giver. But I don't think even if they have another hammer, they're going to attack us. They probably just have to sit back. But even at that, we still win. Yep. And once we see this, we know that like that's pretty much over. There's nothing else they can do. And boom, they pack it in. So now we're going to go to sideboards here. Sideboard, obviously we want some way to get rid of artifacts and enchantments. And then we want some creature removal. I did look at Gaddock Teeg briefly real quick if you noticed, but I didn't really see any reason to play Gaddock Teeg. Stoneforge, pretty slow in the matchup. Not where we want to be. Batterskull, as you saw that game, it just rotted in our hands. Batterskull is not that good in this matchup. Neither is Scavenging Ooze. There's not going to be a lot of creatures in the graveyard. This is kind of like a one-hit kill usually for these decks, or 2 attacks. You know, that's not a very good card. But Knight of Autumn is good, and so is Winds of Abandonment. Winds of Abandonment is really good if we get into a board state where we're kind of in a stalemate. We can wipe their board. But because they're kind of like in on one creature, a 1-for-1 with Winds of Abandonment is actually still really good against Hammer Time. So here we have our taxes in full effect. We got the Thalia turn 2 and the Archon turn 3. Now, assuming our opponent doesn't have some type of busted start, we should be fine here, because we have our taxes, our taxing creatures, Thalia and Archon, and then we have our threat in Knight of the Reliquary and Stoneforge Mystic, and we have an equipment. And we have the Ghost Court as a utility land. So the hand is pretty solid. So let's see what the opponent wants to do here. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, have to assume they're going to get one of the missing equipments that they need. It's either going to be the hammer or the equipment that I spoke about earlier that gives them lifelink or trample. So the Thalia is really going to slow their hand down. I mean, they have Stoneforge, which allows them to cheat in an equipment, but those equipments are like 1 or 2 mana anyways. So it's not like they're generating value out of that. So it is the Colossus Hammer. And we're going to go ahead and Windmill Slam the Thalia here to really slow them down. And this is what you want to do with this deck. You want to play disruptive creatures like Thalia, Archon, slow them down, you know, not allow them to progress what they're trying to do with their game, and then closing out the game faster than the mono white Death and Taxes with cards like Knight of the Reliquary, Questing Beast. And since we're not using cards like Collected Company that gives you random cards, sometimes it wins you games, other times it loses you games, or Aether Vials that sometimes you just draw them and it's the worst card in your deck, or you do draw them in the beginning of the game but they take a little bit of they take longer to set up. Or with this version of the deck, like, we jump right into it. We jump into the Thalia, the Archon. We're getting into the action immediately, folks. So here we go. So there he is, the Paladin. So now we know that they need to have at least two more artifacts in play in order to take advantage of that Paladin's ability. So we know that with the Archon, they're not going to be able to do that next turn, right? So this goes back to what I always say about these decks. When you have two taxing pieces, a Thalia, an Archon, or a Thalia and a Leon Arbiter, or Archon and a Leon Arbiter, you set your opponent back, 2 to 3 turns, and you're just so far ahead, that it's really hard for your opponent to win the game. But that's why I'm a firm believer that Knight of the Reliquary and playing the mono green, the green and white version is a little bit better. In my opinion, I enjoy it better because you have cards in Knight of the Reliquary that can just end the game immediately. Because, yeah, sure, we're going to slow them down, but we still need to end the game. Otherwise, they're just going to get out of the lock and kill us. So there is the Archon. Opponent's probably going to, draw a card here. That tells me that they have a lot of lands in their hands if they're willing to sacrifice lands like that, especially when we have these two creatures in play. So we know that here we're not going to be under any pressure, right? Because they can only play one spell. So it's either going to be the Sigarda or the Hammer. If they would have kept that land, what they could have done is played the Sigarda, and then they could have cheated in the Hammer with the Stoneforge. If they have the Sigarda guide. 8, I mean. So they do. So if they would have not used the Silent Cleaning, assuming that's not what they drew off of that, or they just drew this now, assuming they didn't have to have 2 draws to draw this card, they could have just cheated it in, right, and just equipped it immediately. But we don't know. We don't know what they had in their hand. We don't know if maybe sacking that land allowed them to, because they drew that extra card, it allowed them to draw into that. We're not sure. So I remind the opponent here that we have the Archon in play because they tried to cast the Hammer here. And this is when they realize, like, this is Death and Taxes. Green, white, Death and Taxes. When none of the bad cards. Unreal, guys. You guys are unreal. Unreal. Alright. So now we have the 4 mana in play. This is just fantastic here because now we can play our 5/5 Knight of the Reliquary, and we have the Skyclave Sword, which is going to give us flying and first strike, which is very relevant in this matchup. And Stoneforge, like I mentioned earlier, in this matchup, Stoneforge, although you do want the Skyclave Sword, that is a really good sword in this matchup. Stoneforge doesn't really do too much. I mean, other than fetch out that sword. I mean, that's really why you keep that card in the deck against this matchup. Because, I mean, you don't want to, like, have an easy win by, of course, citing in your Voice of Resurgences, right? You want to give them a chance. Yep, opponent letting me know here they haven't played in a long time, so I'm assuming that's why they're saying that they're playing slow. But that's okay. You don't want to play too fast on MTGO, man. There's a lot of times you can misclick. It's not like paper where you can, like, hey, man, like, you can explain, like, no, this is pretty much like you misclick, you're done, baby. You are done. So I let the opponent know it's okay. I understand. All right, so here we go. So now easy mode is if we draw, of course, a Skyclave or a Path. But the opponent's strategy is online. They're going to be able to cast an equipment, put it onto their dude, and swing. That's what this deck likes to do. This deck is actually a lot faster, but because we had these two taxing pieces, it has taken this deck quite a while to do what it's trying to do. Not sure what the opponent is thinking here. So again, goes back to what I said. I'm not afraid to take damage. I'm not afraid to get punched in the face really hard by a 12-12 because you got to use your life as a resource, my friends. Use your life as a resource. It's part of the game. It's part of how to maximize your cards. So here we draw another Knight of the Reliquary. So we're going to cast the Knight of the Reliquary over the sword because now we have Ghost Quarter, right? So now I know we can, if the opponent does not see this play, what we can do is we can double block. We can then Ghost Quarter ourselves, fetch out another Ghost Quarter, and then Ghost Quarter ourselves again. So that's going to put 2, 3, 5. That's going to put 5 lands in our yard, making our knights 10/10s each. Most people don't see these plays. If we would have had Script Ranger here, we could have played the Script Ranger and we would have been able to put like 12 lands. But, I mean, we would have turned them into 12-12s, but whatever, that's for another story. But most people don't see these plays with the Knight of the Reliquary because a lot of times when people see Knight of the Reliquary, they either see it as a big beater or they see it as something to like fetch out utility lands. They don't really look at it as like a creature that using combat to use certain tricks in order to take an advantage when it comes to attacks and blocks. So there is the Shadow Spear. That's the artifact I was talking about, the equipment that is going to give our opponent trample and lifelink here, and +1/+1. Because why not? Because why not? So our opponent here is obviously going to gain a lot of life, but if we can get rid of this creature, we're going to be able to get ahead big time. Especially since we're only going to lose one knight, and we're going to have both of our taxing pieces still in play, and we have the sword, and another Ghost Quarter in case they play a troublesome land like Nexus. So we have a lot of their ways of winning the game covered. So opponent attacks, I guess they don't see the play. I don't blame them. This is not something that unless you play Knight of the Reliquary decks you will see. So we just tap for a mana even though we have no plan in using it. There could have been, maybe we don't get a Ghost Quarter and maybe just get a Horizon Canopy and use the land to draw an extra card, but you know, at this point, man, I'm just trying to close out the game. I'm trying to close out the game, man. So we do it. The opponent is probably seeing the writing on the wall now. Like, oh man, I'm about to lose my dude and not get any damage in. So like I mentioned, 10/10 knights. And we still have 4 mana once we play, and the opponent gives us a that's fancy, and I say thanks. This is what happens. This is what separates people who play these green-white taxes decks for a long time to those who just picked up the deck. Like, you know, and believe me when I tell you guys, there's so many games that I win with Knight of the Reliquary because people just don't see these little interactions. And Script Ranger, forget about it. Forget about it. Script Ranger's a beast. You know when you play Script Ranger and they read it, they put it down, then you do the fancy tricks, and then they pick it up and they read it again, and then they put it down. You see them pondering, they flicker their little cards, and then they look at it again, and they still are like, wow, this card does all this? And you're like, yeah, man, that's what this card does. It delivers the beats. So there's the sword. Opponent gives us the GG. Congratulations. Knight of the Reliquary coming through with the death and taxes pieces. Deck working the way it's supposed to work. Again, no gimmicks, no vials, bad. No collected company, worse. None of the BS, guys. This is what you should be doing. Time and time again, I'm showing you guys videos of these death and taxes lists, and you know, look at the games. Look at the games, right? This is what you should be doing. You should only play death and taxes if you have Voice of Resurgence in it. Alright? Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if I had any misplays in there that maybe I can sharpen up down in the description, in the comment below. Anybody who plays Hammer, or even if you don't play Hammer Time, if you saw any misplays that I didn't call out, let me know. Maybe they could have killed me if they would have played differently. Who knows? Maybe I got lucky. That's part of playing Magic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and hit that notification button. All these things help out the channel a lot. So anyways, guys, thank you guys again, and peace out.